Like this show and want to make your own? Let me tell you about Anchor. It's free, and they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And now you can even add any song from Spotify directly to your episodes. The possibilities are endless for what you can create, whether it's music analysis, your own radio show, or something the world's never heard before. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hi, and welcome to the Vocal Fries Podcast, the podcast about linguistic discrimination.
I'm Megan Figueroa.
And I'm Carrie Gillen. Just a few housekeeping things before we begin. Just a reminder that we have a Patreon now, and at different levels you get different rewards. So at the $1 level, you just get our thanks. At the $3 level, you get mentioned on this podcast, and also you get one of our stickers.
Which are adorable.
They're very adorable. Which you can put on your office door, your car, wherever.
Water bottle.
Phone. Well, they're a little big for phones, unless you have a really big phone.
Yeah. Take us hiking with you.
Get hungry every time you look at our logo. And and then at the $5 level, you get access to a bonus episode. And we just uploaded our first bonus episode, and it's about the word of the year at the American Dialect Society, which is a sister society to the Linguistic Society of America. And so that's what we talk about. Mm-hmm. You also get the sticker, and you also get mentioned on the show. So, yes. And then also, reminder that our name, our email, our ID at all the locations you can think of is Vocal Fries Pod. So Gmail, Instagram, Facebook,
Twitter.
Oh, and Tumblr.
Yes. So email us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We like emails.
Yeah.
And we'll answer your questions if we can.
Yeah. I see that we're getting questions at us on Twitter, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I wonder, maybe one time we should address those questions. Maybe as a bonus or something at some point.
Yeah. Well, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I'll have to go back and find them.
Yes. All right. So we have a guest today, which is very exciting. But before we get into it, I saw something on the web, if you will, that was someone being an asshole. Well, lots of people being assholes.
Yeah, that's kind of the norm now.
Yeah, I know. That was very vague. You're like, which one are you talking about?
Okay, so last night I saw people tweeting about Chameleonaire and how he had posted basically saying he supports Mexican Americans and Mexicans, and how just because he's a black person, that doesn't mean he's not allowed to do that. And he also stood up for women and immigrants and just everybody. And I was like, Chameleonaire.
Yeah. Well, he was getting a bunch of shit for helping to support a family whose dad was just deported back to Mexico after living in the States for 30 years. And he emailed the person that broke the story. He was like, can you help me get in contact with this family? And apparently he was getting a bunch of hate from assholes saying you can't be black and help Mexicans. And so he was just like, I'm from Texas. And basically, you don't get anywhere without, if you're from Texas. I'm sure that his music career was helped by Mexican fans, for sure.
Of course. And he's just being a good person.
Yeah. I mean, we should all be cool to each other.
Yeah.
What's that from Parks and Rec? Grizzle, they're like, can't we all just be chill? Or, what is it?
I can't remember now.
Yeah. So, Let's all just be chill and not be assholes.
Yeah, and I don't understand this idea that you can only help your own kind. I think
Right.
that is very dangerous.
Yeah, very tribal. That's how we get all this nationalistic crap too. Oof.
Yeah, it's all tied to the same impetus, us versus them.
Yeah.
So thank you, Chameleonaire, for not being like that.
Yes, and for riding dirty.
Yes. Thank you also for your music. We're sorry you're not making it anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so should we get to the interview?
Yeah, that sounds good. And today we have another guest, Selikem Gotah, and he's going to talk to us about language in general in Ghana.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Hi, Selikem.
Hello,
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today.
and thanks for having me.
So I don't even know where to begin. There's so many things that we can talk about. So maybe can you just tell us a little bit about your life in Ghana and the English that you acquired?
Yes, so I was born in Ghana, in the Volta region, where Ewe is spoken largely. Yes, and from kindergarten through to university, I was exposed to English. In the kindergarten, I was taught in English and Ewe at the same time, and in my basic education, I went to a private school. That is a school that government has less influence on, and so I was taught in English purely, and English was taught as a subject. I also was taught French, and then I moved to high school, where I studied French, music, mathematics, social studies, science. And then I moved to the University of Ghana, where I studied linguistics, Russian, and information studies. So after that, I taught Russian in the Department of Modern Languages of the University of Ghana. I actually helped a professor teach the language, and then I moved to the US. So basically, Ghanaian students or Ghanaian children are exposed to several languages depending on where they grew up in Ghana.
Right, so you speak a lot of different languages then.
Yes, I speak about 4 of them. I'm not very proficient in all of them.
Right. Wow, that's still great.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
I know. You're one of those linguists who actually speaks a lot of languages.
And where are you now?
I'm currently in Carbondale, Illinois.
And you're at the university there, right?
Yes, I'm in SIU, where I study linguistics. So this is my second master's degree that I'm pursuing in linguistics. The first one was at the Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, where I studied for a master's in applied linguistics. So I'm currently in a theoretical linguistics program.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
So why did you decide to switch to theoretical linguistics?
My interest has been in theoretical linguistics, but I wanted to have an experience when it comes to language teaching and language learning issues. So I decided to study for a master's in applied linguistics to have a deeper understanding of what goes into language teaching and learning before I continue with a PhD in theoretical linguistics. But my plan did not work. I couldn't get into a PhD program directly. I needed to receive extra training before I could apply and get into one. Yes.
That's interesting. Okay, so maybe you can talk a little bit about how language policy in Ghana works.
Yes, so Ghana was a colony of the British back in the 16th century. And so we were exposed to English at that time. When the British came, they had to be able to communicate with the indigenes of the land. So they trained Ghanaians so they could interpret, between English and the local language, so that our colonial masters could have conversations with us. So that's when we were exposed to English. And so people were trained in English, schools were open, where English was taught, and that's how we started studying English or speaking English. Now, today, English is our official language. That is to say that English is the language of governance. English is the language of education, especially higher education and tertiary education, the language of trade internationally and even within the country. English serves as the lingua franca of Ghana to a large extent. Now, there is another language which is called Akan, and Akan has a wider distribution compared to many of the indigenous languages of Ghana. So Akan also serves as the lingua franca of Ghana after English. So what happens is that in cross-ethnic communication, you are likely to hear people speak English or Akan. When it comes to the number of languages we have in Ghana, we have from about 45 to 50. There are still debates as to how many languages we have. What is a dialect and what's a language? These things are common in linguistics.
Yeah.
So we have about 45 to 50 in the literature. That is what we have generally. But out of those numbers, we have 9 that are recognized by government for education and in their use in state media. So we have the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, which is a state-owned media, and they're able to broadcast in these 9 languages in addition to English. So briefly, that is the policy with regard to language in Ghana.
And so how did you feel growing up about English? Did you feel like it was imposed upon you?
No, I didn't. I did not feel like it was imposed on me. I mean, I did not even have any opinion growing up.
Okay.
Yeah, as to why I was supposed to learn English. I just was sent to school and I was supposed to learn English, and it seemed as though education is tied to English. It's like that if you're unable to speak English, you're not educated.
Right.
I felt the need to work hard at learning English.
Is Ewe one of the languages that the Broadcasting Corporation can use?
Yes, it's one of them.
Okay.
And which language family is that under?
It's under the Kwa language family, and the Niger Congo. So we have Niger Congo, then we have the Kwa family. So let me just add this, that we have 3 main language families in Ghana. We have the Kwa family, we have the Mande family, and then we have the Gur family.
Cool.
So Ewe and Akan belong to the Kwa family.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
So are there any interesting oh my goodness, how would I say this? Ghanaianisms?
Yes, so Ghanaianism is actually a term coined by one Carrie, who teaches English at the University of Ghana. And as I said, my English is based on the British English, and now this English is spoken in Ghana. So obviously there will be differences between the way we speak and then the way the British speak. So we have cultural colorations of the language, and we have experiences and objects that are not in British culture. So we need to name those things, in our English. So that is the birth of Ghanaianisms, and some of these things are seen as deviations from the the standard, what is spoken in Britain. But we have kind of nativized some of this and say, oh, well, this is the way we speak. So we have words that have 2 meanings to us. One meaning is what a British man will say, and then the other is what we will say in our country to define a concept or to name an object in our context. So one example is the word chop bar So you've heard the word chop, like to chop onions.
Mm.
And then bar, like where you go to eat or drink. So chop to us means to eat. So a chop bar is where you go and eat.
Oh.
That's a chop bar. Then, the same word in that compound, chop, is used again in another context. In high schools in our country, we usually go to a boarding house. You don't stay at home and go to school. So you go to a boarding house and live there, for some weeks and then go on break. Like that's go home, then you come back again. So in the boarding houses, when we are going to school, we pick what we call a chop box. So the box that contains your food, the food that you pick from home, like your milk, your cereals. So we keep them in that box. So we call it a chop box. And then you keep
That's cool.
You keep your clothing in your trunk. And the trunk is not the trunk of a car, but it's a metallic box that you keep your clothing in. Yeah. So we have some of these expressions that are just unique to our context. Saying that when you mention it to someone who is not familiar with our vocabulary, the person will not understand. Another word is installment, and the root word there is stool, like a chair. So the whole background of this is that we have chiefs or traditional rulers in parts of the country. Now, these chiefs are kind of inaugurated or coronated, and this coronation is what we call the installment. What it means is that the seat of the chief is a stool, so you are being put on a stool. So that is an installment ceremony.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, if you do not follow the principles of your profession as a chief, you might be impeached. If you are to be impeached, then you are being destooled.
I love it.
Yeah, and that happens in the south of Ghana. Now, in the north, the seat of the chief is an animal's skin. So the hide from the animal is the seat of the chief. So the chief is enskinned.
Oh.
If the chief is to be impeached, then the chief is deskinned.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is unique to our context.
Yeah, I love those. I think they're great.
I know.
Yeah, so that's an example of a Ghanaianism. Now let's talk about ourselves as linguists.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Ghana, these chiefs have spokespersons. Now, many people think that, a linguist is someone who speaks many languages, etc.
Right.
So the meaning of linguist has been extended to mean the spokesperson of a chief. So we have the chief's linguist.
Oh.
So if you tell someone that you are becoming a linguist, so for which chief might be the next question,
Wow.
Yeah, not necessarily teaching linguistics or doing linguistic research, but going to be the spokesperson of a chief. So yeah, we have that.
What would you call yourself then? Would you use another word for what you're doing?
I'm a linguist. So
Okay.
what I do is that in case you ask me whether I was going to be the spokesperson of a chief, I say no, mine is different.
Yeah.
I'm not going to work in a chief's palace.
That's interesting because here most people think a linguist is a polyglot, which you actually are.
Right.
You speak multiple languages, so they would be correct in that assessment for you. But in Ghana, they would be incorrect with the assumption there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And then we have what we call outdooring.
Oh.
If a baby is born, a day is set for the baby to be outdoored. So the baby is kept in a room, it's not sent out at all until I think about 7 days. I'm not very sure about that, but after some days, the baby is taken out, and it's an entire ceremony, and that is when the baby is named.
Oh.
So yeah, you are not named at birth. They name you later, maybe after some 5 to 6 or 7 days. So we call that outdooring ceremony.
I love it.
So that you are outdoored then, so everyone is goes
Yes,
through
yes,
the...
yes.
Okay, yeah. Wow.
But as the world is changing now, some people might not want to do outdooring ceremonies, Yeah. So that has been a norm. And then we have a word like gate fee. So that would be tickets in America, for instance. So the ticket you need to enter maybe a bar or for a show, we call it gate fee because you usually pay the fee at the gate, at the entrance of the place. So we call it gate fee. Yeah. So we have a glossary of all these Ghanaianisms put together by Carrie.
Oh. Should we link to that, or is that available to the public?
Yes, it's in a book.
Oh.
I don't have the
Oh,
book,
it's a book.
here with me,
Okay.
so I can get it imported. I can get it sent to me here.
Oh, so okay. I see.
And if I get you a copy, if you want.
I would love that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
And we should definitely put something on our Tumblr about that. So.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we have expressions that are translated from our local languages. So if I want to say, I will be with you in a moment, I can say, I'm coming, or I'm going to come, as though there's a place called come, So I'm going to come. And that is a literal translation from our local languages. Another thing is the verb write, to write. So in local languages, we say literally write exams, okay? Whether the exam is multiple choice or is fill in the space or essay, we say write. Instead of saying take an exam, you say, okay, I'm going to write an exam. And that is a translation from all local languages.
Are these things that you realized when you came to the US, or did you know that they would be different, that you said them differently? So
when I was studying linguistics in the University of Ghana, I had a habit of memorizing pronunciations even from a dictionary. I did not want to learn English from the public because I felt that there were deviations in pronunciation, for instance, and the use of words. So I was learning stuff from the dictionary. So I got to know that, okay, exam collocates with take and sit, and not write. So that was when I realized, okay, no. So at the University of Ghana, I started noticing some of these differences, and I wanted to stick to what is in the book. So I started learning textbook English, so to speak, and not acquiring what is in the environment. But I mean, there are traces of things that go on in the environment in my English.
So this leads nicely into a discussion of locally acquired foreign accent, which I had never heard of before.
Yeah, me neither.
So can you explain that for us?
Yes. So we would expect that for someone to acquire an accent or a language, the person should be sort of immersed in the environment where the language is used actively. But in our case, there are people who grew up in Ghana, who have never traveled outside Ghana, who just watch, maybe American movies or British movies, listen to R&B, rap music, and all of a sudden they start speaking as though they were in America and have interacted with Americans, like in their country. So you hear people who are artful, people who do tapping. So like the tea in water, they wouldn't say water, they'll say it in American way. And sometimes there are hyper corrections where you have phonological environments where there's no R, but people insert R's just to. I said that. I've been to the US. I know how they speak, and people feel that once you speak that way, you belong to the elite class. Your English is different. Yeah. So people acquire these accents not in America but at home. That is why it is termed a locally acquired foreign accent. And this started in the mid-90s when the airwaves were open for private radio stations to operate in the country. So those who worked on these stations wanted to speak differently from the norm, what is done on the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. You hardly hear Lafa on that radio station or TV. But with the advent of these private stations, people tend to use Lafa. Of course, there are people who have traveled to the US and have lived here for so long a time that they are able to speak like Americans. But again, there are people who have been here, like a former UN Secretary General, Kofi Annan. I don't know if you know about him. He was here for several years, but when he speaks like a Ghanaian. Our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, for instance, studied here in the US and still speaks like a Ghanaian. There are a couple of people who studied here, stayed here for some time, and returned home, but speak Ghanaian. So people do not understand why you should, just visit the US and stay here for 2 days or 3 days or a week and come back with like accents all over. So yeah, that is how Lafa is. But the attitudes of people towards this is kind of ambivalent, because some people think that, well, it's nice, it's cool to speak that way. Some people find it annoying. I read a blog post on this I think weeks ago, and this blog post was written in Pidgin English. We'll talk about that in a bit. And the person was just lamenting why people are forcefully acquiring accents when they are unable to even put, correct sentences together in English. So why the need to be forceful with acquiring an accent that is not present in the country?
That's interesting.
And why do you think that is? Why is it that American English accent is the one that people are trying to acquire?
Yeah, so there are many American movies that people watch in Ghana. Yeah, so movies and then rap music.
Okay, so that's what... Is it because it's you... In school, you learn the British English, so this is a way of being different? Or is it just like how much people enjoy the movies and the media from America?
Yeah, they just want to sound different. Like, the fact that they're not like the ordinary Ghanaian, so to speak. They don't speak like the Ghanaian, and I mean, it's great to travel around the world and see stuff. So they want to help to create that impression that, oh, well, I've traveled before. Okay. I have extra experiences that you have not had. So just to paint that picture that they've traveled before.
So, are there any Ghanaian rap groups that we should listen to?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have Sarkodie. I might have to type that out to you because sometimes. Yeah, I can send you that later. But we have Sarkodie, we have Manifest, we have Shatawale. We have a couple of them that sing. We have one called Ebony, and that's a lady who sings. But it's an area that is dominated by men and not women per se.
Yeah, that's true here too. There's more women now than there have been in the past, but it's mostly men.
Right. Oh, that's exciting. Good question, Carrie.
I meant to ask it earlier, but I got distracted.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, let's talk about Ghanaian Pidgin English, because I didn't even know that existed, but of course it does.
Right.
It does exist, and that is what I speak at home most of the time here, because my roommates are Ghanaians, all right. They speak Akan and English, and my Akan is not very good. And we don't want to speak English at home all the time as though we are still in school. So we speak Pidgin here. So Pidgin can also be used for cross-ethnic communication. Now, how did it start? As I mentioned earlier, the English came to Ghana in the 16th century. Even before that, we had other Europeans coming to the shores of Ghana for trade. So in such situations, you would expect that the Pidgin will develop. So in the beginning, the Pidgin was based on Portuguese, since the Portuguese were the first to come to our coast. And then later on, the English came. So the English overshadowed the Portuguese in the Pidgin, even though we have some snippets of Portuguese words in our Pidgin. So that's basically the origin of the Pidgin. The trade between the Ghanaian indigenes and the Europeans that came to to our coast. Ghana used to be called the Gold Coast, so they came there for trade in gold and other minerals. So that was the origin of pidgin. And today, pidgin is used widely. It's like that we even have types. We have two types. One is the acrolectal pidgin and one is the basilectal pidgin. So the acrolectal pidgin is what is used by mostly male students in high schools and tertiary institutions. And even if they complete the schools, they still use pidgin. And then the basilectal is used by the less educated. So you find many indigenous language words in basilectal than in the acrolectal. So I speak the acrolectal. I learned my pidgin in high school. Yeah, in high school. In fact, I didn't know how to speak it until I got to high school. When I got there, I heard my senior students speaking pidgin, and I was like, "Wow, this is nice. Let me learn to speak it." Yeah, and so I learned to speak it.
I was going to say, could you say a little bit in the Pidgin English for us?
Yeah, I did come. It means I'm coming. I did come. I did go. Yeah, so it has English words. Meet them. Some professors they talk riders. So I'm talking with some professors right now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, you can tell you're a linguist when you get chills when you hear a new language or pidgin for the first time. It's very exciting. That's cool.
Yes. So that's Ghanaian Pidgin English. I would like to add that in the literature, what has been found is that ladies do not really speak pidgin, because they find it to be unladylike to speak pidgin. Some people see ladies who speak pidgin as uncultured. That's what I saw in the literature. But in my recent study, from one of my 10 papers last semester, I sent out a survey to Ghana, and I realized that per the responses from my participants, ladies are speaking pidgin. In fact, I've spoken pidgin with some ladies before, but it's not as widespread as guys speaking pidgin.
That's really interesting. I would never have predicted that.
Yeah. And do you think it isn't as widespread because of this idea that maybe it isn't as ladylike to speak it? So it kind of stopped the spread of it for a while? Or do you see that?
Yeah, I think that's but first of all, society sees pidgin to be a killer, so to speak, of the so-called standard English. So some people do not want even their children to speak pidgin because they feel that pidgin will make them not be able to speak English well.
Yes.
But yeah, that's what people think. But again, in some contexts, you don't want to speak English. I had an experience at a marketplace where I couldn't speak Akan, and I had to bargain for a shirt I bought. But because I spoke English, the seller cheated me. Yeah, he felt that this guy is rich. He doesn't speak Akan.
Yeah.
He's a university guy, and he has money and all that. So I was cheated. When I go to my room, and then I told my friends, so I bought this shirt. It's a nice shirt. And then they asked, how much did you buy it? I mentioned the price, and they said, you were cheated. Did you speak English? And I said, yes, I spoke English. I said, no. When you go to such places, use a local language or pidgin. So if I had used pidgin, maybe I would have paid less than.
Wow.
Yeah, so pidgin can have very, very helpful uses in certain contexts. You might meet someone who is unable to speak English but is able to speak pidgin. So how do you communicate with that person?
Right.
Yeah, so people frown upon the use of pidgin. That is why they find it, unladylike for people, for ladies to use pidgin.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of parallels in the US too. I mean, of course, right? There are, and if you go to Mexico as well, that happens where if you speak English, you could possibly try to get more money out of someone. Good for them. Get the money from us.
Are there any other issues that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, I do have one question actually.
Okay.
Do you see any parallels now that you've been in the US with US language policy and what you grew up with in Ghana?
Yeah, so when I was in Ohio, I was teaching an introductory linguistics course, and while preparing to go and teach, I saw that the U.S. does not have an official language, and English is not. I was surprised, because why is it so? That was one thing that was surprising to me, that the U.S. in general does not have an official language. Yeah. But for us, I mean, we have that, so that's not actually a parallel. We have English as official language. Yeah, but the surprising thing about us too is that we don't have a national language. We don't have a language that is indigenous to us, that belongs to the country per se, because of the multiple ethnic groups that are in the country. It's difficult to choose one language to be a national language.
Right.
But we have official language, which the US does not have, and that is surprising to me.
Yeah, it is interesting that the US doesn't have it, because it's very English-centric in every other way. And as a Canadian, I'm used to having, well, 2 official languages, but there are official languages there. So anyway, I found it odd too, considering how everything is done in English here, and yet there is no official language.
Yeah, I'm glad that there isn't, but I'm also surprised that we don't have an official language. It might happen. I don't know.
It seems it would be difficult to enact, I think.
It seems too nationalistic at this point. I mean,
yeah,
it would be too hostile to any other speakers of any other languages. There would be a lot of pushback. I mean, we're supposed to be this country of immigrants, right? And so I think the idea of not having an official language was probably a good one, but it doesn't make sense given our history that we would have such a good idea. But yeah. Well, yeah, I guess what Carrie said, is there any other issues that we were missing?
Basically there's none, but if you are ending, then I would like to leave you with some Ghanaianisms.
Yes,
please.
Please.
So we have, I'm not cutting. And that means that I am not interrupting you. I'm not cutting you.
Ah.
Yeah. And then we have, let me land. It means allow me to make my point.
Oh, I love that.
Me too.
It's as though you're flying while speaking, and you need to land for someone else to speak. And then we have this, my brother. My brother is not really a biological brother. First of all, yeah, your biological brother is your brother. But in conversations, you can call someone, hey, my brother, as though, you belong to the same family. You do not know that individual from anywhere, but you say, my brother. We have such things happening, especially in political discourse, when, they are on TV having a conversation about an issue. So, my brother, listen, this is not what is happening in my constituency, for instance. Yeah, so we have some of these things. Yeah, so I can get you the glossary of Ghanaianisms later in the year.
Yeah, if we could just have the title, we'll put it out so that our listeners can hear it. Yeah, for sure, because I'm sure they'll be interested after they hear this as well. Yeah, and I really want the spelling of the rap, or the rap.
I will send all of that.
Perfect, awesome. Oh, this is
great. That was really great.
Yeah, I literally knew nothing, so I got chills learning some things. So thank you so much. That was very educational for me. Thank you.
Yes, for me as well.
And thanks to my professor, Dr. Pansky, for making this happen.
Yes, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
And thanks for having me.
Yeah,
thank you for coming on.
Yes, thanks for taking the time.
You're welcome.
All right,
so don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole.
Abedimpo, call me Kofi Kenata. Move on, baby. Move. Eja mama mfao mama mfense mukwan. Epe mi biu. Mfao manse mukwan. Eja mama mfao mama mfense mukono. Epe mi biu. found myself, I'm shady, Jamanello Paco, and Jamanello Paco, and Jamanello Paco.
The Vocal Fries podcast is produced by Chris Ayers for Halftone Audio. Theme music by Nick Granum. You can find us on Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Vocal Fries Pod. You can email us at vocalfriespod@gmail.com.